Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Damage Report. I'm John Iadarola. Big Thursday show for you. Very excited to be joined once again on the program by the host of the Global Thread podcast, which is now available. Yasmin Khan, how's it going?
Hi, I'm so excited to be back on the show. Thanks for having me.
Very excited to have you on. So tell us about the podcast.
I'm really excited. I finally launched a podcast like I've been saying I was going to do for maybe 2 years now. But the podcast is talking about global issues, as the name would imply. Things that you've seen in the news, heard a lot about, don't know the background story of. So the first episode launched on Monday, and we talked about the farmers' protest over in India. So check that out. Yeah, and the next episode coming up is going to be about what's going on over in Myanmar. So a lot to cover. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, both very important topics. So everyone go take a look. On today's show, we're gonna be talking about quite a bit. Like literally as we're talking right now, Marjorie Greene is on the House floor saying a bunch of crazy stuff. I'll update people on that. But we've got Kevin McCarthy, what he knows, what he doesn't know. Matt Gaetz, potential champion for Donald Trump in his impeachment trial. AOC responds to dishonest smears about her recent Instagram live about what happened on the 6th in January. We've got some labor disputes coming to, well, I was gonna say a place near you, but it's actually a place near me, near our producers. Some recent Kroger actions they've taken, and the future of the post office. What is actually gonna happen there? Really fast, because I never want to overestimate how many people who watch this show also have watched the pre-show. I did want to just really fast let you know about a little bit of good news, because this show is going to be a cheese grater to your sanity. So let's start off by buttressing your sanity by letting you know that apparently Virginia is about to remove the death penalty. They're very close to doing that. And very excitingly, supposedly, today, Joe Biden is going to be announcing the cutting off of support by the US for the war in Yemen. So that's something that's been a long time coming. We're gonna have to wait and see. That could come in a couple different forms, but it sounds pretty good, Yasmin. That's something that a lot of people have been working to put pressure on the Democrats to make sure happens.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I am very curious to see how it's going to be implemented, because there's a lot of things that could go wrong potentially. There's a lot of really delicate things going on over in that area, but it's definitely something that needs to happen one way or another. So definitely some progress. Yeah,
exactly.
Happy to hear that.
Good news, good news. And thank you to everybody who's watching, regardless of where you're watching. You can send us comments, tweets, chats, super chats, Twitches, all of that, and we'll be responding as we go. If you haven't already, please hit the like button and share the stream so that people know that we're live as we launch into this. And that said, Yasmin, you ready to do this?
Yes, I am.
Okay, you say that, but our first block is about Marjorie Greene. So let's do this. We've been wondering, what is House GOP leadership gonna do about Marjorie Greene? Apparently, we were predicting nothing, but we're cynics. Instead, Kevin McCarthy has announced no disciplinary actions against Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene in a statement released as he met with his caucus last meeting. He told members he did not want to remove Greene from her committee assignment, according to a senior GOP source in the room. So this contradicts what he's been saying. Like he went to, I believe it was Steny Hoyer, and said, no, don't do a vote. Don't do a vote. Like we'll just take her off the committee and that'll be enough. He doesn't want it. We're gonna show you video of him talking about how he would have been fine with that, but it ain't true according to sources inside of the room. So we're gonna get to the video in just a sec, but Yasmin, did you have any higher expectations for what House GOP leadership would do about Congresswoman Greene?
It actually cut out when you said that. Can you repeat the question?
Well, what did you have any expectations for Kevin McCarthy and what he might do about Congresswoman Greene?
No, none whatsoever. I think just the last 4 years especially have made me so numb to things that should happen, things that could happen, and then they just don't happen. I think what we've seen a lot from the Republican Party these last few years, especially with all of the Trumplicans taking over, is just pure loyalty to the party, and a lot of times I've credited the Republican Party for that, because sometimes that's something that the Democrats suffer from is, there's a lot of division, but a lot of that division is kind of, I think it's a good thing, but that is the one thing that the Republicans do really well is they fall in line to a fault, I think. So no, I didn't expect anything good to come from that.
Well, you were wise not to, but now he does have to speak about what happened there. So we're gonna show you a few videos of Kevin McCarthy, leader Kevin McCarthy. Here is him being a leader. Here he is talking about her denouncing all that crazy stuff that she's been shown to have said.
We were willing to remove her from Ed and Labor. And when Steny Hoyer had called me, he said that was the complaint they had. And I want to be very clear. We denounce anything that we've seen that was said in that past, from anything with QAnon has no place in our party. And Marjorie Greene actually said that inside our conference today. She said it before, but she said from the shootings and everywhere else. And if that gave people problems, she's a small business owner. So we'd say budget and small business. I was more than willing to do that. The conference was willing to do that. And Steny Hoyer and the Democrats said no. They're going to judge her on things that were said that she has now denounced before she was ever a member of Congress.
Okay, so I was perfectly willing to do that, even though the second I came to talk to my caucus, I was like, no, I don't want her to be taken off of that. I was perfectly willing, but I really secretly behind the scenes don't want it to happen. But anyway, he says she's denounced it and everything. Now I get that she is speaking right now, and I'm gonna read a few of the things that she said there too. But like she's already denounced it, so how are you guys gonna be mad at her? Like she's totally denounced it behind closed doors. Yesterday, she tweeted this. We know who they all are. We owe them no apologies. We will never back down. We only serve the one who created us all. We only bow to him. I don't know for sure if she's talking about Yahweh or Q. It's one of the two. She really seems to mix the two up. But anyway, no matter what, never back down, never surrender. Behind closed doors, maybe a little bit, if that helps. But never surrender and no apologies. They're not owed. So anyway, Yasmin, what do you think? If she did denounce it, would that make you feel better?
No, because nothing that she's ever done, like the actions speak louder than words, right? And apparently she didn't even denounce anything specifically. She just says, I said some things that I don't believe anymore, or I didn't believe at the time. Didn't specify anything. Nobody asked her to specify anything, which is a problem also. And then for a lot of the Senate or congressional Republicans, they didn't care. That was enough for them. For a lot of other ones, though, it wasn't enough. So maybe there's some hope there. Maybe.
Maybe, I don't know. Look, if she does denounce it, and so I will say right now, she apparently is on the House floor apologizing. But what I'm seeing of her apology is the media is just as guilty as QAnon for spreading lies. Okay, I don't think that that's true. Abortion's the worst thing this country has ever created. I don't know what that has to do with any of this, but that's what she's saying. And so if this is your apology and it's mostly about trashing the media and implying that CNN and QAnon are roughly equivalent, that doesn't make me feel better. I will say that even a genuine denouncing wouldn't make me feel 100% better. Like, let's say we're talking about something a little bit lower stakes than a congressperson. You probably have all heard the stuff about Armie Hammer and how he apparently wants to cannibalize women that he's with. If he came out and denounced it, that's good, but I still know that he wanted to do it at one point. Like, I'm still disturbed. I'm still not gonna crawl into bed with him. So I don't know, like her denouncing QAnon is good because maybe that makes it a little bit less likely that some of the people that follow Q and love her will commit murders in her name, as she has called for on social media. But I still know that she believed that, and I still have a slightly higher expectation for the sanity and just base cognitive condition of my elected representatives. I think we could find someone better than her. I think that, Yasmin.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially when you consider the way that she got elected into Congress. You know, she ran unopposed in Atlanta, or just outside of Atlanta, I think. And this whole false equivalency that the Republicans are trying to put forward as like, you know, there's craziness on both sides, and they're equating Marjorie Taylor Greene to AOC now, and it makes no sense, you know? And the other thing about denouncing something that you said, it's like, but you believed it, and why? How did you get there? Did you do any kind of introspection? Did you do the work to kind of see the error of your ways? And I'm not convinced that she did, and she hasn't said anything to imply that she has. So, I mean, these are just empty words at this point. And I think we all know that. Nobody, she's not fooling anybody.
Exactly. People do evolve. Cenk Uygur used to be a Republican. You can change over time and with introspection and work and exposing yourself to new perspectives. Or it could just be that like, man, they're really putting pressure on me to pretend briefly that I don't support this. And then we can get past this moment and then I'll go right back to supporting it. So anyway, each person needs to decide which they think that is. But I'm a little bit hesitant to believe Marjorie Greene's denouncing of this if she only does it behind closed doors or right now on the House floor in a way that really seems more about attacking her political opponents than about denouncing it. But anyway, the media wanted to know from Kevin McCarthy, why is it that she's doing this behind closed doors? And here is what he had to say.
Colleagues said her views amount to a cancer for the Republican Party.
Well, I denounce all those comments that were brought up. Everybody, and she came inside our conference and denounced them as well. She said she was wrong. She has reached out in other ways and forms, and nothing that she said has been based upon since she's been a member of Congress. And the voters decided she could come and serve. When she sent and denounced all those, well, inside our chambers,
for her past comments.
That's exactly what she did. That's what she did inside our conference.
Do Democrats deserve to hear that same apology that she delivered?
Well, I think everybody should hear that. And she has expressed that she has put it out from news agencies and others. I think it would be helpful if you could hear exactly what she told all of us.
I think it would be helpful if you could hear the things that she won't do and has already said, no apologies, no surrender, no backing down, blood for blood. Yeah, it would have been helpful, I guess. But here's the thing. It's not just that it was behind closed doors and that what she's doing now is not an apology. Like her talking about cancel culture, that's the exact opposite of apologizing for the things you believed, making it about the media lying and cancel culture. But anyway, he keeps saying she totally is denouncing or whatever. We denounce it. More importantly, we denounce it. Well, then why is it that sources say that roughly half the House GOP conference gave her a standing ovation when she spoke in that meeting? That's what Cameron Joseph is letting us know. Some are saying it might have been less than half, but it's still dozens and dozens and dozens, maybe 100 House Republicans so disagree with Marjorie Greene that behind closed doors, they stand up and clap. Like it's the epic conclusion of the Lord of the Rings or something. Like it's the portal scene. It's just, we've been building to this. I love you and I so don't agree with anything that you're saying. Okay, I know what you're doing. You don't want to go on record supporting her, but behind closed doors, you love her. And you certainly want her to know that you love her since she now represents like the biggest growing wing of your party. Anyway, Yasmin, thoughts?
Oh man, that hurts my heart to equate the Senate Republicans to Lord of the Rings. Like, oh man, that's the worst. But Kevin McCarthy is kind of being a goof right now. I think that's the best word that I can come up with. Yeah, it's just kind of goofy. Like he keeps calling QAnon QAnon, like he doesn't know what it is. He's like, oh, I don't know. It's like QAnon, something like that. Even if, let's say, we know he knows what QAnon is. We know that he has denounced it in the past. We know all this. By him trying to distance himself from it now, it just makes him seem very incompetent, more than anything. Why don't you know what QAnon is? You work in Congress. You need to know what these things are. And we know you do. So I don't know what he's playing at this point. We know.
No, it's a great point, but I want to make sure that people see that the goof comment that you're referring to. So here is Kevin McCarthy pretending that he has no idea what QAnon is.
Yeah.
I think it would be helpful if you could hear exactly what she told all of us, denouncing QAnon. I don't know if I say it right. I don't even know what it is. Any from the shootings. She said she knew nothing about lasers or all the different things that have been brought up about her.
You lying fake piece of all sorts of stuff I can't say live on the air.
He's a goof.
Come on. You're being way too nice. A goof. Anyone watching knows you lying. I want to say it. I can't say it. You liar. You're a liar. You're a liar. And we know it. Not only do literally millions of his voters believe, stronger than they believe anything else in their life, that Q exists and they're gonna round up all the Democrats and they're gonna murder them. It's gonna be absolutely awesome. He knows what the stories about her have been. He knows that the president had to talk about QAnon during the campaign, said, all I know is that they seem to love Trump and they love America. That was a whole news cycle. He knew about it when 6 months ago, he answered a question from Fox News' Shannon Bream about Greene's pro-QAnon rhetoric by saying, let me be very clear, there is no place for QAnon in the Republican Party. I do not support it. And the candidate you talked about has denounced it. She hadn't, by the way. He's lying there, but he knew what QAnon was there, and now it's QAnon. I've never heard about it. What is this thing that you speak about? God, sometimes people are just so fake, such massive liars, that there should be a button that just ejects them out of Earth. Anyway.
You know what? There's the other part of that too, is if you don't know what it is and you don't know these things that Marjorie Taylor Greene has been asserting for the last, however long she's been doing this, why are you defending her? Why are you leading any of this? Why are you speaking about any of this? Why are you even trying to say she needs to stay in Congress on these committees and all these things if you don't even acknowledge or understand the things that she's been purporting to say? I don't know.
Someone in the YouTube chat is like, him pretending not to know QAnon is like some guy like pretending to like mispronounce a porn star's name. Like, I'm not familiar with that. Like, yeah, let me check your search history, buddy.
Oh,
QAnon's in it. Anyway, so look, this is what passes for leadership in the House. He's gonna try to get through this whole thing, not having to ever exercise any leadership. Just like, just whatever happens, man, let the voters decide, or let someone else decide, or let the Dems decide. Just please, just keep me out of it. I don't want any of this. And can we, if we have her stand on the House floor and then talk about how abortion's terrible and CNN are conspiracy theorists, is that good enough? Will she not get kicked off then? And by the way, let's be very clear. By the time you're watching this uploaded on YouTube, maybe if you're not watching live, I guess we'll know they'll have had their vote. And maybe he'll be right. Like maybe the Dems will watch her insane thing with her mask that I'm going to assume is a conspiracy theory phrase on her name. And maybe they'll be like, well, I guess she did sort of denounce it, and they'll back off. We'll see. It is the Dems, so you never know. They're really weak. They're really cowardly. They hate confrontation. That's possible. Or maybe I'll be wrong. And maybe she'll be stripped of those committees. And maybe we'll have finally sent a signal to the country that there are some things that are too dangerous, too crazy. We have to have some base level expectation for what our elected officials are gonna be about. And specifically the threats of violence against people currently serving in government are unacceptable. You do not get to talk about shooting Nancy Pelosi in the head. I disagree with Nancy Pelosi constantly. I've made hours of content about disagreeing with Nancy Pelosi. You do not get to talk about murdering her. That is not acceptable, not in a functioning democracy.
I think one of the things too that Democrats do that is very frustrating to a lot of us is they don't do things because they fear retaliation once the tables turn. And the thing is, that is a legitimate concern in a lot of ways, but that at the same time, you can't not do your job because you're afraid that they're just gonna be terrible. But the thing is, they're already doing it because they've already introduced, one House member, Brian Babin. Guess who he represents? Me. He's my congressperson, actually.
Really?
Yeah, he is my congressperson. And he said, instead of all these things, let's remove Ilhan Omar instead from her committees. So it's already happening, this retaliation of all the 435 congressmen or congresspeople. That one's mine. So thanks.
Yeah,
I got that guy and Ted Cruz representing me in government. Just fun.
And like each of us has to decide is thinking, okay, we will strip Marjorie Greene, but we also get to do Ilhan Omar. Is that better than the space lasers? I don't know. I think it's worse. I think it's worse. There's a lot of crazy to go around. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, is it worse? I don't know. Like these space lasers that identify as Jewish, that's a very strange concept to me.
Very strange concept.
Yeah.
Anyway, so apparently she's saying that she doesn't believe some of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
That's fine. We'll see if that convinces anyone. Okay. When you were a person who believed that every school shooting was faked by the government or was real, but the government did it, and they did it to take away guns, and now you're a person that doesn't think that, okay, you're gonna need to explain that, period. What changed? What changed? Okay, are you just saying it's not true? Or are you gonna talk about the process of coming to grips with the fact that you had been smearing the parents and relatives and friends of murdered kids for years for your own economic gain in the videos that you uploaded, and you ran as a person who believes all this crazy stuff, and you now are making this big salary and everything, you get to explain that, okay? When did you change your mind about the lasers? Do you still hope that QAnon is right and that they're gonna round up all the Democrats and murder them? Because you say you don't believe Q, but that is the core of it. That's the great storm. So do you still want that? And that's just like, we're moving past the RBG was a clone and Jews are trying to wreck Europe by bringing in Muslims, all that stuff. You could have a sit down interview for literally hours where I want you to explain why you believe those crazy things way back in 2019 and now you don't.
Yeah, and something else that Kevin McCarthy mentioned that was terrible was he was saying, oh, well, she hasn't said anything crazy since she's been elected into office. Like that matters, that, up until a couple of weeks ago, she was still spewing all these things out. It's not even true. She has said crazy things since she's been in office. And even still, it's just this whole idea that you see a lot from the Republican side is, I can say whatever I want, but I didn't really mean it. I was joking. That was yesterday. This is today kind of thing. And I mean, you have to be accountable for the words that come out of your mouth, especially if you're a public figure, if you're, a member of Congress, especially.
Yeah, I mean, she look like the disgusting smears against Ilhan Omar. She was tweeting them during that meeting.
Yeah,
literally during that meeting. He's in the process of saying, well, she hasn't said anything crazy recently. And she's like, what? I'm sorry, I missed that. I was spreading a conspiracy theory on Twitter. She still says that Trump won by landslide. The election was stolen. Everything that Trump was saying that led to that attack, she's saying he was right. Still, she still says that to this day. I'm gonna expand. I don't know. I wanna see, just out of curiosity, this is a shot in the dark. I don't know if you can hear what I'm hearing. I can't see what's on her mask, but I guarantee it's crazy. Right now, not in 2019, not in 2018. Anyway, we're gonna read a few comments from the audience, and then I just want to touch base with Jim Jordan and Lindsey Graham. There's a lot of other news, we will get to it, but I like to think that people who've been watching the show for a long time understand that there are some things that bother me more than others. And there is little in this world that bothers me more than completely irrational people who are untethered from reality, who hold political power. I hated that about Trump, and she is arguably crazier than him. So we're gonna engage with it, people. Anyway, Atomic Dracula says, give me that dragon news, Dragon Father. Well, we are, thank you. Adam Fogarty says a day early, but happy birthday, John. Thank you for that.
Hey.
Green says, my sister's birthday is also tomorrow, and you remind me of my little brother. Thank you for helping me to process the news. Well, that's very nice of you, thank you. Matt Miro says, hey, John, great to hear we share a birthday. There's so many February 5th birthdays. We sadly lost Hank Aaron, who was also a February 5ther, but the show goes on. Keep doing what you do. Yes, that was very sad. And happy pre-birthday to you. Forrest Dudley says, hey, John, can I get some positive energy? My dearest friend's son has died and she's shattered. Isaiah Maza was stabbed and murdered on Monday, feet from his house in Portland in front of his girlfriend. Forrest, that is absolutely devastating. I'm so sorry that you and your friend are, have to go through that. Just devastating. And I hope that the show at least can provide a little bit of levity, a little bit of distraction, even if just temporarily. James Perkins says, Luke and Palpatine were equivalent on either side. One was the hero of the story though, and the other was a farm boy from Tatooine trying to overthrow the rightful government. That's an interpretation of it. Anyway, Darlene, thank you for becoming a member on YouTube. Do appreciate that. Flip the Twisted Dragon says, this is so frustrating. That could be about any piece of news and you would be equally right. Over on Twitch, Big Bull Dragon is gifting a tier 1 sub. Thank you for that. Faithless Draco Lich gifted 5. Thank you so much. Those are the first 5 for Faithless. Thank you for that. Heather M gifted 1 as well. Mother effin' Woman Dragon gifted 1. And Princess Lalu did as well. Thank you for that. Post Data Est did as well. Thank you. RacerX subscribed for the 2nd month and says, thank you, TDR Dragon, for all you do in standing up to this corruption so we can have a better future. Well, thank you for that. Auntie Alley Cat subscribed for the 7th month and says, I've been following TYT for over 5 years now. Before, I ignorantly relied on mainstream media for my news. I'm so grateful for TYT and TDR for reporting the facts and holding those in power accountable. Proud to be progressive. Thank you for that. Very nice of you. Unfortunately, we have to turn from very nice people back to the crazies. So let's do this. Are Republican senators any more worried about the big infusion of QAnon into their caucus than those in the House seem to be? Well, let's start off with, well, we're gonna get to Lindsey Graham. We'll move on to that. But I think possibly worse here is Jim Jordan. So he's gonna be asked about the fact that this is taking over the party. Here's what he has to say.
She is a problem for our party.
Congressman, your response.
No one's condoning the remarks that she made. I've not heard any Republicans say that those were appropriate. So that's not the issue. The issue is once this starts, tell me where it ends, Sandra. Where does it, who's next? I mean, look, think of the cancel culture, Sandra. I don't want is people canceling everyone else. That is the most dangerous thing happening in our country today.
Okay, so I saw that video on Twitter posted by Aaron Rupar, and Aaron Rupar pointed out over 3,000 people died from COVID yesterday. So arguably more dangerous still than cancel culture. But anyway, Yasmin, think of the cancel culture. I mean, if a woman who talks about shooting Nancy Pelosi in the head is stripped from a committee assignment, where does it end?
Yeah, that seems to be kind of a cop-out that we're hearing a lot of lately, a lot of reasons for not reining some of these people in or not. I get that it's a slippery slope as far as censoring voices, right? There is a difference when it comes to the government and private platforms, of course. But then you also have the case, which is completely unprecedented, that a president and his followers have incited an insurrection at the Capitol and endangered all of our lawmakers. That's a problem and it needs to be addressed. And in the past, whenever we've had instances of terror, domestic terrorism in the United States, they've done things to prevent it from happening in the future. They've taken action against it. And this, I don't know why they're so reluctant to do anything about it, and they keep using cancel culture and censorship as their excuse. And I don't think that's good enough.
Well, look, I think, and I've been saying this for a while, they want every issue to tie back to cancel culture because cancel culture is a thing that you can talk about hour after hour and do nothing. Like nothing gets done. That doesn't raise anyone's wages. That doesn't give anyone health insurance. That doesn't stop any war, but it's a thing that you can get all worked up about. It's convenient for them. But specifically to him, I want to ask him a question. So he says, where does it stop? More importantly, Jim Jordan, where does it begin? Because you don't want it to begin here. You think that her approving of threats to hang Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton are okay. Saying that Hillary Clinton ate a child's face and drank her blood after raping her, that's okay. The space laser is okay. The constant anti-Semitism and racism is okay. None of that is enough for any consequences. So if this isn't where it starts, where does it start? What would Marjorie Greene have to say for it to be okay to strip her of a committee position? Because it has to start somewhere. There are consequences for actions in some parts of our life. And traditionally, that has even existed in government as well. Was Jim Jordan aghast at Katie Hill being pressured to resign because of her affair? Was Jim Jordan like stumping for Al Franken to run again because why should he have been taken out of office and all of that? Like Steve King, after all of his racism and his white supremacy and all of that, he lost his committee assignments. I thought that was a perfectly good place to start. Maybe we should talk about the start before we worry about the end. Should there be any consequences for anything? And if not, how do you have a functioning government? If Marjorie Greene can walk on the House floor and give a speech saying, I want everyone at home to grab their guns, come in here and start shooting Dems, would that be enough? Would that be enough? And how far do we have to get towards that? Because she's done it in the past. That is already a thing that she's expressed support for. So I don't know, it's such cowardice. He, like the rest of them, he doesn't want QAnon people to turn on him and have him be primary. That's all it is. And he's willing to risk AOC being shot or Ilhan Omar being gunned down if that means he doesn't get primaried out by someone even crazier than he is the next time.
Yeah.
And let's also really fast bear in mind that a guy who's talking about how there shouldn't be consequences got away with obscuring and stopping the quest for justice back at the college he worked at when kids were being sexually molested. There were no consequences there. That would have been a good time for it to start, perhaps, some kind of consequences. This is a guy who's dodged consequences his whole life. So at least he's being consistent here.
Yeah, I think you touched on a really good point that it's all so nebulous, right? It's really easy. I mean, we saw it the entire time when Trump was in office, everything that he said that sounded crazy, they all said, oh, he's just joking. That's just a sense of humor. He didn't really mean it. He's not gonna do it. But then at the same time, he is inciting all these people. He is defending QAnoners and all these insurrectionists and all these, really terrible groups of people, the Proud Boys and things like that. So the effects are very obvious, but it's also nebulous enough to where you can make the argument that this is not directly related to that. Yeah. And that's the problem. And in our legal system, especially, a lot of things come down to motive and what were you trying to do when this happened. But again, it's hard to prove these things. And if you don't have a good attorney, then you can just say, it is what it is.
Exactly. And look, we're not putting her on trial. We're just saying maybe she shouldn't be setting education policy when she believes that kids are faking their deaths. But anyway, Yasmin, you made a great point when you talked about how for years Trump's comments were defended as, you're taking him too seriously. He's just joking. Like, you're obsessing about things like, let's slow down the testing. And oh, whoops, he did slow down the testing actually. Now they don't have exactly that for Marjorie Greene, the jokes. But Lindsey Graham does have a defense that is perhaps even more laughable than the one they applied to Donald Trump. So here is Lindsey Graham asked about Marjorie Greene.
That you have spent some time with her. Where do you come down on this idea of whether she should be stripped of committee assignments?
Well, rather than me talking about what she may have said, I want to hear from her. So I flew down to Georgia with her on Air Force One, had a very pleasant experience with her, very, very cordial, very pleasant. So here's what I think she owes herself, quite frankly, her constituents in the country. Is that true? Was she misquoted? Was she taken out of context? I want to know, does she still believe that Sandy Hook's was faked, that 9/11 was an inside job, that there's a Jewish laser in the sky starting fires in California? I don't know. I know how words can be twisted. I know how you can be taken out of context. But rather than me talking about her, I would like her to be definitive. Did you believe that then? If you've changed your mind, why? What do you believe now? Then I will comment.
Oh, Yasmin, so at the end there, what he said was actually somewhat similar to what you and I were saying about it's not enough to just announce it. We want the explanation. But what did you think about the point he was making?
I didn't like it. I mean, I guess the idea is, does she still believe it and all these things? But the thing is, like, she's been doing it recently, actively right now. She's still defending those. Yeah, she has like that Trump won mask on her face on the congressional floor. So obviously, no, she hasn't changed. She still believes all these things that she was talking about on the campaign trail prior to being elected and then after being elected. So I don't really know what Lindsey Graham is looking for, what kind of evidence he wants to see, what she could possibly say to convince him like, oh, she's cool now, she's fine.
Yeah, in the same way that I had the question for Jim Jordan, I do have a question for Lindsey Graham. What would the proper context be that we've taken her out of for literally any of those things that she's said? So if you are saying that Obama and Hillary should be hung, wrap that in a context that makes it acceptable. I'd like to see what that is. What do you think about that? Believing for literally years and making hours-long rants about how some guy secretly in government is revealing that there's been an international pedophile ring for centuries that Donald Trump, friend of Jeff Epstein, is gonna like singularly take down. What's the context that we need to know? The space laser stuff. Like if she had said the space laser stuff and then said, that's the basic premise for my upcoming screenplay, but I'm a little bit worried it's too crazy. That's the only context I would accept. And that's not the one that we've provided. So it's such a cowardly, like, I'm not gonna actually say anything. I'm just gonna assume that maybe she's taken out of context. Just stop being cowards. Stop being cowards. There was the guy yesterday that was like, I can't comment on this because the weather's been too rough. I think it was Martha McSally was like, I can't comment on this because back when I was in the House, I used to hate when senators would talk about pending legislation. No, you're all cowards. We're supposed to believe. They're saying you guys are crazy for focusing on her. She ain't powerful. Well, then why is every Republican senator running scared from commenting on how it is crazy to traffic in insane, murderous, anti-Semitic, racist conspiracy theories? It's not difficult. I'm not a senator. I have a YouTube channel and I can do it. You should be able to come up with something. You've got PR teams. Put a statement together.
It's also a tweet. Like she tweets a lot of these things, So as far as context goes, that is the context. It's a tweet. It's 140 characters or however long. Maybe a thread. Maybe there's a tweet thread. Best case scenario. But as far as the contextual agreement goes, it doesn't make any sense. And I think he knows that. Lindsey Graham is known for being one of the flip-floppiest flip-floppers that we have in government right now. So I really don't take a lot of what he says worth anything, really. But yeah, it's a silly argument.
Yeah, you're 100% right about Lindsey Graham. As someone in Twitch chat pointed out, he was the guy that said years ago, if I try to seat a judge to the Supreme Court in 2020, you use this video against me. Whoops. I guess we're just gonna do it because hypocrisy doesn't matter, it turns out. So yeah, you're right. We can't trust, nor should we really care what he says. But if he is gonna be this cowardly, if this is what the Republican Party is gonna be, we're at least gonna point it out to people. Anyway, that's it. No more of her for right now, unless I refresh my Twitter and she said something else crazy. But I think we're good. Doesn't mean we're gonna be moving on to people who are any less, marginally less crazy. But real fast, I just wanna read a few super chats before I move on. GGC says, great to see you both. Claiming Gilded Dragon, thank you for keeping me up with the news with some humor and great commentary. Will we see a pet? Well, I apologize, my pets aren't at the studio. My dog is, both of the dogs are convalescing at home. One, my wife's dog, just got trimmed down to nothing. And now my wife doesn't really love the dog anymore. And so that's been rough emotionally for the dog. And mine has to have a cone on, and he's never gonna learn how to walk around the house with that thing on. He's just bumping into everything. So, but what about you? Do you have a pet handy?
Who, me? No, I don't. I think one time I was on, there was like a bird in the garage that had moved into the garage. He's gone. So no, we don't have any pets. But we're building a garden in the backyard, so there's been a lot more birds and things like that coming in. So that's kind of cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Next time you're on, the night before, if you could leave your garage door open, let's just get critters in there.
Okay. Yeah. Leave some food there, and maybe we can attract some people in.
Just raw meat. Anyway, Robin McHale, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Appreciate that. Ghost Dog says Q on is what's left when Q wipes. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Let's see. Alan Addison says, just reported Trump asked to testify under oath at impeachment trial. That should be one of the best comedy routines of the decade. Under oath? He's avoided that like his whole life. I still am so torn on whether I think it's gonna happen. I think he would love the spotlight, especially because he doesn't have any spotlight right now. But that said, he could open himself up to so much trouble by testifying. What do you think, Yasmin?
I'm sorry, who are we talking about?
About Donald Trump testifying at his own trial.
No, that's the worst idea. That's the terrible idea. He should not do it. If he does, though, I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna be very interested to see what it. I mean, we already know what he's gonna say. The same things he's been saying. And he keeps complaining about being deplatformed and things like that. But he's gonna come back and just say all the things he was saying from before. So it's not like we missed anything. But yeah, I want to see that. I'll watch.
Bryson, welcome to Tier 1 membership. Thank you for that. Amy Brast as well. Nicole sent in a super chat saying MTG's mask says free speech. Sure. That's the least crazy one. She's like, scratch the surface on what she thinks qualifies as free speech and what doesn't, but that's less crazy. By the way, one thing I forgot to say about the cancel culture stuff. Right now, Matt Gaetz, who we're gonna talk about in a minute, he's trying to get Liz Cheney taken out of Republican leadership. They failed, it didn't pass, but he wanted her to be stripped of her leadership because she voted against Trump. And he rails against cancel culture every single day. So trying to get her removed from a committee, she's been there for 3 days, that's cancel culture. Stripping Liz Cheney because she voted to impeach Trump, she's been there for years. That's not cancel. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. Or it has a meaning, but we have to actually understand it. We can't just accept their branding because it's nonsense. Anyway, let's see. Civic Folly, subscribed for the second month and says, is just me or are the Republicans using the House floor for the Green hearings as a Bible quoting prayer circle about forgiveness? Sure. Romulan subscribed for the second month. Thank you for that. Future Mrs. Lee for the 7th month and says, so grateful to be part of TYT. Love you all dearly. Thank you for all you do. Happy early birthday, John. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, with that, let's jump back into the news because we've gotten through A block so far. Might have to bring some stuff back tomorrow. Anyway, Trump does have a legal team for the impeachment. He's lost them periodically, but he always finds some more. But waiting in the wings, we have a volunteer who wants to be tribute or whatever for that. We've got Matt Gaetz saying that he would be willing to resign his congressional seat in order to defend President Donald Trump in the upcoming impeachment trial, which instantly many people, including US Representative Brendan Boyle, said, I strongly support my colleague Matt Gaetz doing this. He said this on Stephen Bannon's radio show, that he would give up his position as an elected congressman so that he could argue for Donald Trump in his impeachment trial. Yasmin, what do you think?
I would love nothing more than for him to follow through on his promise to do so. And who is afraid of him taking this step? Like he's not that popular with the other members of Congress to begin with. I don't think even like some Senate or House Republicans would argue that he should stay, and it's kind of weird to see all of these lawmakers still being so loyal to this ex-president who was impeached twice, just in the name of potentially saving their political careers or getting some kind of traction from the Trump supporters going forward. It's really kind of sad. Now would be the time to pivot if they were going to. Otherwise, just go. You can go. It's fine.
Yeah. And look, I know he would be replaced by some other crazy Republican, so it's not like the seat would flip to the Democrats or anything. That said, he's awful, and he's not just awful in the constant, like nobody licks a boot like Matt Gaetz. I don't know, there's a lot of them. Lindsey Graham licks boots pretty well, but no, Matt Gaetz can take the tread off of a boot. But anyway, he's also terrible. Like he was the guy who was joking about the pandemic in the first days and still thinks it's a joke. He was joking around Christmas, hundreds of thousands of Americans dead. He thinks it's hilarious. I do have to say though, I think it makes sense that he would do this, or at least he would say this, because again, saying something and doing it are very different things. And sometimes you can get all of the benefit of a thing by saying it and not have to do it. Like when I agree to do social events and then they get canceled, score one for Johnny. I promised, I get all the credit. I didn't have to actually go. It's great. And he's potentially doing that. So when he says, absolutely, if the president called me and wanted me to go defend him on the floor of the Senate, that would be the top priority in my life. I would leave my house seat. I would leave my home. I would leave my family. He didn't actually say that, but he probably will. He said that the cancellation of the Trump presidency and the Trump movement is one of the biggest threats to his district. No, it's not. Your district is gonna be underwater in a couple of decades, dude. And I love that you went to that photo of him. But anyway, everything's cancellation. That Newsmax host that couldn't find his McFish this morning, he was canceled. The McFish was canceled. Look under your seat. You're all canceled. It just means everything. But like whether he has to do it or not, like if he wants to run for president or whatever, let's say, it's amazing to think about. What better thing could he do than this as a Republican? Like, it's not like the Republican voters want him to pass legislation that improves their life or whatever. That's a joke. He just has to be the one that licked Trump's boots the best. And this is the most bootlicking you can fit into the current political situation. So Matt Gaetz, bravo, and you remain a tool.
Yeah, it's kind of a gamble for him too. Who knows what's gonna happen with Trump's base in the years to come, Maybe they will dissolve, as we're kind of already seeing starting to happen. There's a lot of QAnon people who have kind of seen the light in recent days since the insurrection and since Trump has been silenced on Twitter and things like that. And I am interested. I guess only time will tell in this case how that plays out for them. But I'm not optimistic that this is going to work out in Matt Gaetz's favor, and I am okay with that.
I think you might be right. There is a chance that it could dissolve, or that he could set up his own party, which would sort of move it over. I think though that it's still a pretty safe bet. I think that the party's still not super likely. And even if it just naturally sorts of fades away, I doubt that we'll get to the point where Republican voters will look back and be mad at people for having been pro-Trump in their party. So I think it's a pretty safe bet, especially again, if you don't have to actually do it, if you're just offering to do it on Steve Bannon's show.
Yeah, and anyway. Republicans, they value loyalty and they don't care if you follow through on anything that you say you will do. So I guess, yeah, you're right. It is could work out to be a win-win for him.
100%. Okay, now with that, let's move into one of the most frustrating topics we've had to talk about for a little while. Earlier this week, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez gave an incredibly open and honest and brave recounting of not only what she experienced on the 6th of January in the Capitol attack, but also revealing, for instance, that she is a survivor of sexual assault. And literally as that was going on, and every minute since then, some of the most disgusting people in the country have been using this as an opportunity to tarnish her, to clout chase for themselves, to raise a little bit of money. And that's come in a lot of different forms. One of the ones that's I didn't really necessarily expect was that some of her fellow congresspeople would be attacking her for that, including Nancy Mace, who tweeted this: "I'm 2 doors down from AOC and no insurrectionist stormed our hallway." Now, if that sentence had just ended with a period, it would be bad enough because she's trying to make AOC out to be a liar. But she put the ... that's supposed to be like a, I'm just saying. Why is she exaggerating? It didn't really happen. I'm 2 doors down. Now that is disgusting no matter what. But considering the things that Nancy Mace herself was saying as the attack was happening and in the immediate aftermath, it is so transparent and nasty and vicious. And we're gonna reveal it, starting with AOC, who tweeted, "This is a deeply cynical and disgusting attack. As the Capitol complex was stormed and were being killed, none of us knew in the moment what areas were compromised. You previously told reporters yourself that you barricaded your office, afraid you'd be hurt. She did. She said she barricaded herself, fearing that Trump supporters she had seen staying at her hotel might target her after she voted to certify the electoral votes. She said she decided to sleep in her office that night. She said her children kept texting her asking if the protesters were gone. She was so preemptively worried about the event that she was gonna bring her kids. And after she saw all those people, she didn't bring them that day. She was scared in advance and she was scared during it. And afterwards, she talked about how she'd had to barricade herself." AOC tweets again with retweeting a tweet from Nancy Mace from the 6th saying that she had been evacuated from her office due to the nearby threat. She's heartbroken by what she's seeing. And AOC says, "This is what you were saying just a few weeks ago. Now you're contradicting your own account to attack me for Fox News clicks. It's honestly pretty sad to see you turn around like this and throw other people under the bus. Thought you'd be better." And so now, because so many disgusting people are piling on AOC, because there is this ongoing effort by the right to rewrite what happened on the 6th to pretend that it wasn't that bad. Never mind this dead cop and the other people who died and the cops are committing suicide. It's not a big issue. They are directly contradicting their own accounts of what happened on that day, if that's what it takes to get a little bit of clout off of Representative Ocasio-Cortez.
Yeah, as far as solidarity with women goes, it's really, really disappointing to see. I think actually J.R. Jackson, he posted something, I think he tweeted about it, that how disappointed he was with the comments on Twitter regarding what AOC revealed regarding her sexual assault and then her experience that day on January 6th at the Capitol. And I think I responded, I was like, I couldn't even bring myself to read those things. Right now on Twitter, I think it's hashtag AOC lied is trending. Thankfully, a lot of progressives have taken over that hashtag with cute pictures of kitties and puppies, which is really nice to see. That's fun. They're also equating her to Jussie Smollett. They call her AOC Smollett now, just because of this tweet from this person who, her own previous tweets discredit this one. So it's weird that people are so willing to jump on this bandwagon. That's, I think, the part that hurts the most as a woman, as just a human being, really. This is a thing that we've had to deal with time and time again with little to no any kind of reward for it, any kind of, consolation for it, any kind of just validation for the things that women are put through time and time again, regularly. It's so much more rampant than anyone really realizes, because every woman has had some kind of interaction that was not great in that sense. And that's the nicest way I can put it, I think.
And can expect that if they make the difficult decision to talk about it, they're going to be automatically assumed to be lying. They're going to be smeared as doing it for fame and money. Every woman in the Me Too movement that brought up any of this, it was said that she was doing it for money. Who made money? We're years out, okay. So who got famous and who made money off that? A lot of people have faced death threats. They've had to move their families. That's been great. Not a lot of money. It's weird that never actually turned out. But anyway, and some do it to look cool to other right wingers. Like Nancy Mace is doing this. She doesn't have a show. She's not trying to get Patreon people. She just wants to like, hey, yeah, she's the enemy. I'm gonna mock her. And so when I saw what AOC was spreading of Nancy Mace from the 6th, I decided I'm gonna look to see Nancy Mace had been saying. And I found that not only was she scared, but AOC is being attacked by people like Tucker Carlson as she's making it about her, talking about her trauma. That's just about her. That's the only thing she cares about. Well, it's weird because Nancy Mace I'm gonna show you some videos of her talking about her own personal experience. How dare she talk about the fear she felt? Now, obviously, we think that's perfectly acceptable because the fear was justified because they were going through the building killing people. And that's now Nancy Mace thinks that's unacceptable. But at the time, she was saying things like this. Take a look.
I was with Representative Dan Crenshaw at that time, and I sort of said, thank God I'm with someone who's, former military vet. I felt safe because I was right there with him, but there were 100 of us underground in that tunnel, and it was very scary because you felt like a sitting duck. And then and when we were in lockdown, our doors were locked, the lights were turned out, the shades were drawn, and we were asked to be silent. And all you could hear for hours and hours and hours were the sirens of all the Capitol Police, the National Guard, all the law enforcement coming to the rescue at the Capitol. And it was a traumatic event. I had initially planned to have my kids up there because at the school that they're at right now, they're only doing virtual. And so they weren't able to go to school in person. And I thought, hey, wouldn't this be really cool to hang out with mom? Civics lesson, history lesson. We made history in this election. It'd be cool to roam the halls of Congress and do your virtual school in my office because I would be doing the work of the people and in the chamber and everything. And thank God I decided Sunday night, when I heard and saw the rhetoric leading up to this, I felt really uncomfortable as a mother, as a parent. Yeah. And at about, 4 or 5 o'clock Sunday afternoon, I booked the first flight home the next morning for them, which was an 8:30 flight. And I'm just so grateful that they weren't there to witness it.
So she was terrified. She was terrified. She was happy that she had Dan Crenshaw. She said, so it's absurd for AOC in her office, with just her and like maybe Katie Porter to be scared. She said she was in a tunnel in a group of 100 people and she was terrified. In a crowd of people, she was terrified that they could be killed. They were sitting ducks. And that is perfectly, yeah, I would have been terrified if I was in that group. That is terrifying because there were people coming to try to kill you. And so you were right to believe that. So maybe remember that when you try to smear people like AOC, who for the periods of that time where they were absolutely alone and were terrified that they were gonna be murdered, maybe that's acceptable too. Maybe you don't go on TV after the attack to talk about your experience and to justifiably get the sympathy that is owed to you for that terrible experience that never should have happened. And then you turn around and attack AOC for doing the same thing. It's just despicable.
I think what's important to kind of remember or realize too with a lot of this is that AOC isn't sharing her experiences in an effort to garner sympathy. She's sharing all the things that she's sharing because it was scary, this never should have happened, and something needs to be done about it. And all these personal accounts just show this is how bad it actually was. Whatever you saw in the news, however bad you thought it was way worse on the inside. And I can't even imagine what it would have been like to be inside that building knowing that there's a literal mob outside who doesn't like you. Who wants you dead, who has called for your removal, who has called for, they have it like, what was it, a guillotine outside or one of those? Yeah. I can't even imagine. So at least AOC is goal oriented in that something needs to be done. Nothing has been done so far, not anything substantial at least. So in the case of Nancy Mace, I don't know what she's doing, or we know why she's doing it, but it's not a good enough reason. Yeah.
Really fast, I just want to play a little bit more of that video. Here's Nancy Mace right after the attack.
This was domestic terrorism. These were people that you watch the video, and I do not encourage any viewers to watch the video. It is traumatic, but you can hear them chanting, hang Pence, and looking for different members of Congress to do bad things.
So you've got. So she not only gets that it's a threat, it's scary, it's traumatic. There were people hunting down specific members of Congress to hurt them. So AOC expressed that she was worried that she, perhaps other than maybe Hillary Clinton, the most vilified woman in the country from the right's point of view, might be harmed. And Mace directly understands that they are trying to hunt down specific people. So AOC is crazy to say the thing that I objectively believe was actually what was happening. It's so see-through. It's so see-through. And I really hope that a lot of people end up seeing these videos that we found. Just so disgusting. But anyway, I want to end with what AOC said about sort of her takeaway from this. This is where the true damage of what Nancy Mace is doing comes in. How many survivors are watching her? Who now, seeing her, won't get care or will feel further shame or silence? Who won't speak up because they know there are voices in leadership ready to minimize their experiences? And that's totally true. Nancy Mace spoke up about her experience. She feels open to do it, but now she is turning and attacking other women who are doing it. Everyone, like we get people who send us in messages about the terrible experience that they're going through, because we're a part of a community that helps each other. Everyone should feel that. But unfortunately, some people, and AOC is a great example of it, are just ritualistically attacked when they talk about the things that have happened to them. And we have to move past that as a culture.
Yeah, and I'm sure AOC knew exactly what was going to happen whenever she decided to reveal what she revealed on, what was it, an Instagram Live. So she's much more well equipped to deal with these things than the average woman is, just living our lives. And, so many of us are just carrying trauma around with us. And AOC is a very strong woman. She's a public figure. She works in Congress and she's a fighter for so many people like her. So she knew what she was doing and she knew what she was exposing herself to. And it's important that she did that. And I'm really, really grateful that she did. But people like Nancy Mace is unacceptable. It's pretty despicable to see.
100%.
It's disappointing even.
Yeah, she's a representative. She should know better. And she knows what she said. She just expects that no one's gonna check. Anyway, and people in the chat are saying it's not just people on the right. You're 100% right. People in the chat are saying that they know people. They're married to people who are calling her a liar and all of that. And I know I've seen the Glenn Greenwald thing mocking her and everything. It's so disgusting that I don't even want to focus on it. It's not just the right. The right are the worst, but there are people who are in the center or say that they're on the left or whatever who are attacking her just as much. Okay, now that said, we're gonna read a few comments before we move on to our final story. We're probably gonna go a couple minutes over, but it's an important one. Peter Burbeck sent in a super chat saying, voting tech company Smartmatic files $2.7 billion suit against Fox News on air personalities over election misinformation. That's a big one, and they spread a lot. Hugh S, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Let's see. Okay. Let's see, Barry Drake, thank you for becoming a member. Joe John says, Marjorie Taylor Greene, big defense. I was allowed to believe things that weren't true. Is that an actual quote? Daniel says, go Knicks. Okay, we don't talk about sports much, but sure, why not? Franklin Sharpslicer says, brings a whole new meaning to the term McCarthyism, just a change in tunes. 87 years, we've just changed the loons. That's good. That sounded like a freestyle rap there, Franklin. Oh geez, Sarah Bell says, I lost my grandpa and cousin to COVID last week, and I'm thankfully recovering from severe pneumonia. It's been a hell year, but all the dragon love helps so much. Sarah Bell, that is terrible. I lost a close relative as well. No one should have to go through that. And the fact that it's happening so late in the pandemic, we should have had it under control months and months and months ago. Wow. Over on Twitch, Ryu Raul says, 9 months ago is May. Wonder what holiday all these February birthdays were conceived on, LOL. We're not going down that road. Can we just appreciate a birthday? Anyway, Shoegaze Dragon Georgie says, John, bring in the blooming onion. No, we're not doing that. Anyway, let's see. Over on hashtag TDR Live, Unprecedented Madness says, MTG said Jesus died for her sins, so she can sin as much as she wants and it's okay because all her sins are forgiven. I don't know, that's not generally how Christians think of that, but maybe she's come up with a way to get out of jail free. Anyway, with that, we are gonna roll through to our last story because we do have a limit. Let's do this thing. It has been an amazing process through the course of this pandemic that some of the groups that we all united in calling heroes and saying how supportive we were, that over time that support just sorts of falls away, especially when it's economic, and especially when it's those essential, generally lower income workers who helped us get through the rough initial months of this pandemic. So I want to give you an example of it. Back on April 1st of 2020, Kroger chairman and CEO Rodney McMullen, Kroger being a company that owns multiple grocery store chains, including in my area, said our associates have displayed the true actions of a hero, working tirelessly on the front lines to ensure everyone has access to affordable, fresh food and essentials during this national emergency. The hero bonus, is a temporary pay bonus, is just one more way we can continue to convey our thanks and gratitude to our existing associates. True actions of a hero, tirelessly working. We want to convey our thanks and our gratitude. And you know what? It wasn't just Kroger. Even some local governments decided, yes, these people are heroes. Many of them have gotten sick. Hundreds of grocery store employees have died. We're gonna recognize that, and we're gonna recognize that the pandemic is worse than it was back on April 1st. Thousands of people dying every day. We barely cover it anymore. It's just so routine that 3,000 to 4,000 people are gonna die. So last month, Long Beach, just south of here, became the first city in California to approve a hazard pay ordinance. Remember the hazard pay that we were talking about with Kroger? It's like that. With the law requiring grocery stores with at least 300 workers nationwide and more than 15 employees within Long Beach to pay an extra $4 an hour for a 120-day period. So an extra $4 an hour for a few months until hopefully, fingers crossed, we get through this thing. And Kroger, who has those stores in that area and values these true heroes, these people who work tirelessly, that deserve this pay. It's a way to convey our thanks. You know what they did? They closed their stores in the area. A Ralph's and a Food for Less, they are closing them down because the law. Because for a couple of months, they'd have to pay a couple bucks more. They are going to literally permanently close both of those stores, which is weird because now hundreds of their heroes are gonna lose their jobs. Now it's devastating, jokes aside, the whole situation is so sick. But this is kind of a micro version of what our country has done to people who work in grocery stores, to people who work in food packing plants, to people who work in sort of frontline medical workers. It's like lots of respect and admiration in the first few months, but then I kind of want to go outside again. So screw all of that. Screw our teachers. They can get sick and they can potentially die. I want to be comfortable once again. And when there's a profit motive, when it's a monetary thing, Rodney McMullen, what about your heroes, man? What happened to your heroes? He's okay with them losing their jobs. Yasmin, what do you think?
It's crazy. First of all, I mean, it was really easy to call people heroes when you don't have to actually do anything to help them. I live in Texas, and here we have a local grocery store chain, and they were one of the first, I think, to increase hazard pay for their employees. And I think they're still doing that, or they need to re-up it soon. But I mean, you really need to take care of these people, but it's not just the employees who you're putting out of work now, these heroes that you claim to care about, but it's also those communities that you're disservicing. They don't have a grocery store anymore. They have to go elsewhere, I guess, for their groceries. But how are you gonna not serve the community that you're in? It just, all of it is wrong. But we all have short attention spans, so we will move on and they'll just, keep doing their business and they're not gonna face any consequences for it. Maybe I'm being pessimistic, but I don't.
Yeah, I share the cynicism.
It sucks. Yeah.
Maybe there will be some sort of boycott. I mean, there are other chains.
Yeah.
We'll have to see if they're actually any better in terms of their corporate practices. But yeah, that's just devastating. And it really is just what the country has been doing. Like, sure, let's make a nice glossy commercial about this group. But wait, you want money now? No, we're not. We were talking about like vague stuff like admiration, not stuff actually like money in your pockets. And in this area, so much work needs to be done to help increase the bargaining power of workers. I saw that Biden kicked out this entire board that had to do with sort of labor relations in the federal government, and they were all just terrible people that Trump had put in. So they're all gone. That's That's the beginning, but we're gonna have to see. Like our entire country needs to recommit to this the way we did, 75 years ago or so, because people are just being taken advantage of. And if they can do this in the middle of this pandemic that has supposedly rallied the public in support of them, when things get a little bit better in terms of the economy and in terms of public health, what are they gonna do then when there's less of a spotlight on it? That's my fear. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Yasmin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
On this hour of the news. I want to give you a chance to let people know once again about your podcast, what you're going to be covering, where they can find it.
Okay, yeah, I have a new podcast out called Global Thread. I'm really excited about it. And we talk about news stories from all over the planet. So not just domestic, even though that's still gonna be a thing. So the first episode was out on Monday and we talked about the Indian farmers protest. And coming up this Monday, we're gonna talk about Myanmar and what's going on over there, because it's a lot and it'll be fun. You should check it out. It's available wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google, whatever. So, and there's a link to it in my Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah, everyone definitely go check it out. And Yasmin, again, thank you so much. Stay safe.
Thank you.
And for those of you at home, I'm gonna read just a few more of your comments. Goblin Dragon had said in the super chat they need to get a Winco. And one of the producers, Edwin, says we do have Winco in the LA area. I've actually never heard of Winco. I'm not actually familiar with it. I'm gonna have to look into that. Look, I have to say, I do go to Ralph's. I don't always go to Ralph's. It's the most convenient one for me, but I go to Pavilion sometimes. I go to Northgate Market. There are some other chains. I worry that they're all probably just owned by the same person. I'm gonna have to do some research, figure it out. Let's see. Bernie the Kiwi Bird says all of these people piling on AOC are sick. People like Mace are hypocrites on top of this. Thankful that we have people like you to call them out. Thank you. And thankfully a lot of people, like when AOC was tweeting that stuff, like she does get a lot of support. Like she draws a lot of negative attention, but there are a lot of people who support her obviously and know why she's doing this and sympathize. Tone Stower says Matt Gaetz looks like the head vampire from Lost Boys, just ew. I haven't seen Lost Boys, but I can imagine. Joe Walter says Democratic impeachment managers just asked Trump to testify. I hope he does. Maybe then we can convict him of lying to Congress. He's incapable of speaking without lying. Well, that is definitely true. That is definitely true. I'm not sure that it's actually gonna happen, but perhaps we'll see. Lazy Peon, the Stone Eagle Dragon says, in my best Captain Kirk voice, Khan! I'm sorry, but someone had to do it. Did they? But no, I appreciate the super chat. Kate says, happy birthday, John. Mine was yesterday. This 69-year-old loves TYT. Thanks for all you do. Thank you so much, and happy belated birthday. Leslie Ghost Dragon says, just caught Dragon Daddy's pre-show fish rant. It was off the hook. He filleted that text like only a male Karen could. Yes, we were talking about the Newsmax host and his epic quest to get a McFish from McDonald's. 10 a.m. fish sandwich. That's how I live my life, on the edge of vomiting. But anyway, thank you everybody for watching this show. I'm gonna be conducting a little interview about Congressman Kinzinger and his effort to try to push back a little bit on the conspiracy theories coming into the Republican Party. We'll see how successful that is. And of course, we got a big show. We're gonna be closing out the week as we always do on Fridays with Brett Ehrlich, which means it is your opportunity to go to the community tab of our YouTube channel, youtube.com/The Damage Report. You go to the community tab and you're gonna find a poll and you get to vote for who the community garbage person of the week is gonna be. Last week, it was an overwhelming victory by Marjorie Greene. We'll have to see if maybe she can go 2 in a row. 40,000 people voted in the last poll, which is massive. Let's see if we can break that today. So everybody just takes a minute, head over there and vote. Very excited to see who your garbage person is. And until then, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and I'll see you soon.